Welcome to Module F3 of the CLAWS Continuous Improvement Program, 6S and Visual Management. This is one of the most practical modules in the whole foundation tier because it's about something you can see and touch, the workplace itself. There's an old phrase at the heart of it, a place for everything and everything in its place. Simple as that sounds, it's the foundation that every other lean tool quietly stands on. Over the next half hour or so, we'll work through what 6S actually is, walk through all 6 S's one at a time, and then look at visual management, the art of making a workplace tell you its own status at a glance. Let's get started. Here's what you'll take away from this session. First, you'll be able to define 6S and explain why it matters, not as housekeeping, but as a system for organizing work. Second, we'll work through all 6 S's: sort, set in order, shine, standardize, sustain, and safety, so you know what each one means and what a good result actually looks like. Third, you'll see visual management at work, how a well-organized space makes problems visible at a glance, from a simple shadow board right through to a live digital dashboard. And fourth, the part that really matters, you'll leave able to carry the 6S eye back to your own area and spot what's sorted, what's out of place, and what could be made safer. So, what is 6S? The name comes from a set of Japanese words that begin with the sound S. Seiri and seiton are the first two, and the idea behind them is captured in those Japanese characters for tidy and orderly. But don't let the translation fool you into thinking this is about neatness. 6S is a step-by-step method for organizing a workplace so that the right things are in the right place, ready to use and obvious to everyone. Put simply, only what is needed is present. Everything has a home, and the place stays clean and safe. And here's why it's the foundation. You cannot improve a process you cannot see. 6S makes the normal state visible, so the abnormal stands out instantly. Let's make that concrete. On the left is a disorganized workstation, a cluttered bench, tools and parts everywhere, unlabeled bins, something on the floor you could trip over, and no clear flow to the work. On the right is the same workstation under 6S, clean bench, a shadow board with every tool outlined in its place, labeled bins right at the point of use, floor markings, and a clear walkway. Now, this isn't tidiness for its own sake. An organized workplace is safer, faster, and higher quality. There's less time lost searching, fewer mix-up defects, fewer accidents, and problems tend to reveal themselves early, before they grow into something expensive. It's worth being clear-eyed about what good 6S actually returns, because this is where you justify the effort. First, less searching. Studies of well-organized cells consistently report big cuts in the time people spend hunting for tools, parts, and information. Second, space recovered. Sorting and point-of-view storage routinely free up floor and shelf space for productive use. Third, and this is the one that gets attention, fewer defects and fewer accidents, because clear standards and marked hazards reduce mix-ups, rework, and injuries right at the source. And fourth, faster onboarding. A visual workplace teaches itself, so new starters get productive sooner. The exact figures vary by site, but the direction is remarkably consistent across industries. And the gains compound, because 6S is the base layer that makes everything else possible. Here's the whole framework on one slide. The 6 S's in the order you run them. 1. Sort. Keep only what's needed. 2. Set in order. A home for everything. 3. Shine. Clean and inspect as you clean. 4. Standardize. Make it the standard way the area runs. 5. Sustain. Make it a habit so it lasts. And 6. Safety. Design out the hazards. The first 5 come straight from the Toyota production system. Safety was added later, the 6th S, to make explicit what good organization always meant to deliver. And the order matters. Each S makes the next one possible. You can't set an order until you've sorted, and you can't standardize until the area is clean. Let me dwell on why 6S comes first, because it's easy to dismiss as the simple one. The truth is that almost every other lean tool quietly assumes the workplace is already organized. You can't standardize chaos, you can't flow product through clutter, and you can't spot a problem you can't see. Think about it. Standard work needs a consistent, organized layout. Flow and pull need clear paths and marked storage. Maintenance needs clean equipment so faults reveal themselves. Problem solving needs abnormalities to be visible in the first place. All of that rests on one thing: an organized, visual workplace. That's the foundation. That's 6S. Get this right, and everything built on top of it has a stable surface to stand on. Let's work through them, starting with the first S, sort, seiri. Keep only what is needed. The job here is to separate what the work needs right now from what it doesn't. Anything you're not sure about gets a red tag and a clear decision. Keep it, relocate it, or remove it. What you're left with is a workspace that holds only what earns its place. In practice, that means red tagging questionable items with a removal date, clearing out obsolete tools, expired stock, and broken fixtures, and freeing up bench, shelf, and floor space. And the payoff is immediate. When there's less to look through, the work itself becomes faster and simpler. Sort is the step most likely to go wrong, and it usually fails in one of two ways. People either throw out things they later need, or they refuse to part with anything at all. The red tag process fixes both by making the decision visible, shared, and reversible. Here's how it runs. Step 1. Tag. Attach a red tag to any questionable item, noting what it is, why it's tagged, and the date. Step 2. Quarantine. Move tagged items to a single holding area out of the work zone. Step 3. Wait. Give it a set period. If nobody needs it in that time, it probably isn't needed. Step 4. Decide. Return, relocate, repurpose, recycle, or remove. A clear call for each item. And Step 5. Log. Record what left and what space it freed up so the gain is captured and the team learns from it. Nothing useful is lost and nothing useless is kept. Here's what sorting looks like in practice. Before, on the left, benches and shelves crowded with rarely used tools, obsolete parts, old fixtures, unlabeled boxes. All of it kept just in case. After, on the right, a clear area holding only the current tools and parts, with a dedicated red tag zone for the items still awaiting a decision. Now, I'll be honest with you, sort is the hardest step emotionally. We all keep things just in case, and asking someone to let go of their stash can feel personal. That's exactly why the red tag process works the way it does. It makes the decision shared and visible, so it's about the work, not about the person. The second S, set in order, seiton. A place for everything. Once you've sorted, you give every item that remains a clearly marked home, positioned so it's easy to find, easy to use, and easy to return. The most used items go closest to the point of use. Done well, anyone can find anything in seconds, and just as importantly, a missing item becomes obvious at a glance. The tools for this are familiar: shadow boards and outlines that show what belongs where, floor markings that define walkways and storage and zones, labeled bins stored right where the work happens. When the home is obvious, a missing tool isn't a mystery, it's a gap you can see. Look at the difference. Before, a jumbled drawer or pegboard with tools piled together. Every time you need one, you're searching. After, a shadow board at the point of use, each tool outlined in its own marked place. One glance tells you what's there, what's in use, and what's missing. This is the slide that sums up the whole step. A place for everything, and everything in its place. And notice the quiet benefit. When the home is obvious, returning the tool becomes the natural thing to do. It stops being an extra chore you have to remember and becomes the path of least resistance. Third S, shine, seiso. And here's the key idea. Clean is inspect. You clean the workspace and the equipment, but cleaning isn't the real goal. The real goal is what cleaning reveals. When you wipe down a machine, that's when you find the leak, the loose bolt, the worn belt. So you restore equipment to a like-new baseline, and then you keep it there. Because once it's clean, any new deterioration shows up early. Set cleaning standards, schedules, and clear ownership so it actually happens. The point isn't a shiny machine for its own sake. The point is a machine whose problems you can see before they cause a breakdown. This is shine in one picture. Before, a machine caked in built-up oil and dust, where a slow leak is completely invisible under the mess. It could go unnoticed for weeks until something fails. After, the same machine, clean and inspected, where a fresh drip now stands out immediately and gets fixed before it becomes a problem. That's the whole concept. Shine is inspection in disguise. A clean machine is not the goal. A machine whose problems you can see. That's the goal. Cleaning is simply the most reliable way to get there. Fourth S, standardize, seiketsu. Make it the standard. This is the step that turns the first three S's from a one-off cleanup into the normal way the area runs. The The risk after sort, set in order, and shine is that things slowly drift back. So you lock the gains in with visual standards, simple checklists, schedules, and clear ownership. Photo standards show exactly what good looks like. Checklists and schedules assign who does what and when. Color coding and labels make the standard visual rather than written. And the test of a good standard is this: anyone can see, at a glance, whether it's being met. Nobody has to remember. The workplace shows them. Here's Standardise made visible. Before, every shift arranges the area its own way. There's no agreed layout, so the space drifts back toward disorder in the handover between shifts. After, one visible standard for everyone. A photo board showing the agreed layout with floor and shelf markings that make that standard obvious to every shift, every person. This is the step people skip, and it's why so many cleanups don't last. Without a standard, the gains from the first 3 S's quietly slide back. The standard is exactly what makes good organizations stick, between people and between shifts. 5th S, sustain. Shitsuke. Make it a habit. This is the hardest S, and the one that decides whether 6S lasts or fades. Sustain is about keeping the whole thing alive after the launch energy wears off. And it's less about willpower than about culture and routine. Short, regular audits. Leaders who actually walk the area and notice when something's drifting. Recognition for the teams who hold their standards. And quick correction when things slip. None of those are dramatic, but together they're what separate a 6S program that becomes the way you work from one that's a faded poster on the wall 6 months later. You can see the 2 outcomes side by side. Before, a board still hanging on the wall from a 6S launch months ago, but the area has quietly slid back to its old, cluttered state. The launch happened, the habit never formed. After, a simple audit board with recent checks and a visible trend, and an area that looks the same today as it does in the standard photo. That's the difference sustain makes. Here's the thing to remember. Most 6S programs don't fail at the start. The kickoff is usually great. They fail because they fade. Sustain is what turns a one-time event into the everyday way the area is run. The 6th S, safety. And the instruction here is, design out the hazard. This is the modern addition to the framework, and it makes safety an explicit part of organizing the workplace rather than a separate concern. As you sort, arrange, clean, and standardize, you also remove and mark hazards, trip risks, blind corners, awkward reaches, exposed moving parts. And you design the space so that the safe way is also the easy way. That means removing trip, reach, and collision hazards at the source, marking hazard zones, PPE areas, and emergency access clearly, and improving ergonomics to cut down bending, twisting, and strain. A safe workplace isn't an add-on at the end. It's part of the foundation. Safety. Before and after. Before. The hazards are hidden in the clutter. Cables run across a walkway, an extinguisher is blocked, parts are stored overhead where they could fall, and there's a blind corner where 2 paths cross. After. Those hazards are designed out and marked. Clear walkways, hazard striping, accessible safety equipment, and storage arranged to remove the reach and the trip risk. And this is the key point about the 6th S. Safety isn't a separate program bolted onto 6S. It's the natural result of doing the other 5 S's with people's well-being in mind. Organize well, and you organize safely. So that's the 6 S's. They organize the workplace. Now we move to part 2, visual management, which takes the next step. If 6S organizes the space, visual management makes that space speak. It's what lets anyone tell normal from abnormal without having to ask a single question. Let's look at how that works. Visual management is the practice of showing the status of work at a glance. So a person can walk into an area and immediately see whether things are normal or whether something's wrong, without reading a report or asking a supervisor. And it builds directly on 6S. Once everything has a marked home and a clear standard, any deviation becomes visible. A missing tool, a stock out, a stalled line, a machine that's down. Here's a good test for whether your visual management is working. Could a brand new employee tell, in about 5 seconds, whether this area is normal or abnormal? If the answer is yes, you've got it. Status is visible without words or systems. Standards are shown so gaps are obvious. And problems surface early, not at month end. If visual management is so useful, what actually makes a visual standard work? The research is consistent on this. Workplaces that rely on graphic cues outperform those leaning on text and checklists. because good visuals reduce the effort of understanding to almost nothing. A few principles. Use one visual language, the same colors, symbols, and layout everywhere, so a cue means the same thing in every area. Show, don't tell. A picture, an outline, or a color beats a paragraph, and it crosses language barriers. Color code by meaning, and never reuse a color for two things. Design so the gap is obvious. The abnormal state should jump out at you. Keep it current, because an out-of-date board just teaches people to ignore boards. And place the cue where the work is, at the point of use, not filed in a binder by the door. Let's get concrete about the common forms you'll actually see on a floor. Floor markings. Taped zones for walkways, storage, work in progress, and equipment, so the layout enforces itself. Shadow boards. Outlined tool homes, where a missing item shows instantly as an empty silhouette. Kanban and min-max markings. Cards and lines that signal when to replenish, so it's pull, not guesswork. And-on signals. Lights or flags that call for help the moment a problem appears at a station. SQDC or KPI boards. Safety, quality, delivery, and cost. Shown daily so the team sees performance at a glance. And simple color and labels, which turn "you have to know" into "you can see." Most of this is still paper and tape today, but the principle, and increasingly the medium, is going digital. Which brings us to Lean 4.0, Visual Management Going Digital. The principle is completely unchanged. Make status visible at a glance. What's changing is the medium, moving from paper and tape to live screens and sensors. Most plants still run on whiteboards, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the leaders are letting the board update itself in real time. Live dashboards show real-time OEE, output and downtime on a screen, with no manual tally and no delay. Digital and-on means a station flags a problem, and the whole line and support team see it instantly. E-Kanban sends replenishment signals electronically the moment stock hits its trigger. And digital 6S audits run on a tablet, with photos and trends tracked over time. Same idea, make it visible, just faster and harder to ignore. Here's something easy to miss. Today, most waste isn't on a bench, it's on a screen. And the same 6 S's organize your files, shared drives, desktops, and inboxes, where clutter is just as real and far easier to ignore. Sort. Delete duplicates, old drafts and downloads. Archive what's done and keep only live files. Set in order. Agree a folder structure and a naming convention so anyone can find a file in seconds. Shine. Clear the desktop and inbox regularly and fix broken links and mislabeled folders. Standardize. One shared template and structure across the team, not everyone's own private system. Sustain. A light monthly tidy with clear ownership of shared drives. And safety. Access control, backups, and version history. The digital equivalent of designing out risk. The principles travel perfectly. Let's come back to the hardest S, sustain, and the single most reliable tool for it, the 6S audit. Sustain needs a rhythm, not willpower. A short, regular audit, just a few minutes, scored against the visual standard, keeps the area honest and turns "is it still good?" into a number you can actually track. A few rules make it work. Keep it short and frequent, 5 minutes, often, not an hour once a quarter. Score it against the photo standard, so a simple number shows drift early. Let anyone run it. Rotate who audits, so it's the team's habit, not the manager's task. Post the trend, so the team owns the line, up or down. And act on the gap. An audit that never finds anything to fix isn't really an audit. Increasingly, these run on a tablet, Kamishibai style, with photos and trends visible to everyone. There's a wider win here that's worth naming. 6S isn't only about efficiency. It's also better for the people doing the work and lighter on resources. Think about it in 3 parts. Designed for people. Organizing for safety and ergonomics. Less reaching, bending, strain, and trip risk. Makes the work safer and less tiring, and the safe way becomes the easy way. Less material waste. Sorting surfaces obsolete and expired stock before it's scrapped, and clear standards cut the rework and mix-ups that get thrown away. And less energy and space. A clean, right-sized workplace needs less lighting, heating, and floor space, and equipment kept clean simply runs more efficiently. That's the Industry 5.0 view. An organized workplace is better for the people in it and lighter on the planet. 6S quietly serves all 3. Before we wrap up, let's look at how 6S programs fail, because knowing the traps is half of avoiding them. The most common one. It's treated as spring cleaning, a one-off blitz with no standard and no audit, so the area looks great for a month and then drifts back. Another. Sort becomes throw it all out, with useful items removed and no red tag decision. People lose trust and start hiding their own tools. Standards that live in a binder nobody reads, instead of visual standards anyone can see. No leadership follow-through. Leaders launch it, then stop walking the floor, and the team quietly concludes it didn't really matter. Doing it to people instead of with them, so the new home for things makes no sense to the people who use it. And safety bolted on at the end as a separate checklist, rather than built into how the area is organized. Avoid these 6 and you're most of the way there. Let's bring it all together. 6 S's, in order. Sort, keep only what's needed, and red tag the rest. Set in order, a marked home for everything, so missing items show. Shine, clean in order to inspect and surface problems early. Standardise, make the sorted, ordered, clean state the visible standard. Sustain, audits, leadership, and habit keep it alive. And safety, design out and mark hazards as you organize. Do them in order, make the result visible, and keep it alive. That's the whole module in one breath. 6S is where a culture of continuous improvement stops being an idea and becomes something you can actually see. Before you go, here's the one thing I'd like you to do. Bring the 6SI to your own area. This week, look at your workspace, physical or digital, with fresh eyes. What's there that you never use? What has no clear home? What could be made just a little safer? You don't need a project, you don't need permission, and you don't need to fix it all at once. Just start noticing. That habit of noticing is where continuous improvement begins. Thanks for joining me for this module, and I'll see you in F4, where we look at CI culture and scientific thinking.